Welcome to the audio story Hunter's Moon, Vampire's Curse, a haunting tale of love, fate, and blood. When a reborn vampire meets the one she once blessed, is it salvation or the beginning of ruin? Chapter 1. I pulled my cloak tightly around me as I walked down the street, finally understanding why everyone said Florence had become a city of vampires. It was midday, yet the sky was shrouded in dense, dark clouds. The Gothic domes loomed like the sharp claws of a beast, piercing through the heavy, leaden cloud cover. I remembered my last visit here, when the houses bloomed with vibrant, flower-like colors. Now, they were reduced to dull shades of black, white, and gray. Looking up, I could see the magnificent, ornate cathedral of Santa Maria del Fiore, but above its dome circled hundreds of red-eyed bats. Their blood-red eyes and sharp fangs glinted ominously. When they gathered, their bone wings spread like dark clouds, blotting out the sky, a growing menace to the city. The municipal government, however, was powerless against them. Because of these blood-sucking creatures, the city of purple irises had turned into a filthy gutter. Many were forced to abandon their homes and seek new places to live. Hurrying through a muddy alley, I thought I could shake off those annoying pursuers. But not only did I fail to lose them, they seemed to draw even closer. Fine, it's their territory, after all. Ahead, I spotted a small tavern bustling with people. I quickly slipped inside. Someone had spread a rumor that vampires only drank blood from the neck, so people wore metal collars to avoid becoming their prey. In truth, if a vampire craved your blood, they wouldn't care if it came from your ankle, they'd bite wherever they could. "Miss, care for a beer?" A stout woman called out enthusiastically, 3 beer barrels dangling from her waist, the golden liquid slushing inside. I waved her off. "No, thanks." My refusal drew more attention. A crowd swarmed around me. "Miss, I've got authentic which blessed silver collars," one said. "I've got exorcism powder, the bane of bats." Another chimed in. "I've got—" "No, really, I'm good," I said, frowning while glancing behind me. Strange, my pursuers had vanished. Before I could think further, the crowd scattered, and a scream pierced the air from ahead. "Vampire, a vampire, run!" My heart clenched. Looking up, I saw a red-eyed bat flapping its bone wings, landing on the ground and transforming into a four-legged humanoid monster. Its skin was deathly pale, veins bulging visibly. Its skull was grotesquely deformed, protruding like a bird's beak, with fangs 20 centimeters long capable of piercing a human skull in one bite. Its muscles were unnaturally developed in the shoulders and arms, but its legs were shriveled, dragging behind like a tail. This was the lower strength of vampire, terrifyingly strong but devoid of reason, animated by new vampires. In their hierarchy, they were less than ogres. Before it noticed me, I scanned my surrounding spot. A private carriage caught my eye, approaching from a distance. Only the wealthy elite could afford such carriages, often equipped with exorcism lanterns to ward off low-tier vampires. Those lanterns, however, were useless against vampires of my caliber. Yes, I am a vampire, an old vampire, nearly extinct in this era dominated by new vampires. Old vampires either holed up in ancient castles, squandering their fortunes, or like me, were hunted across continents. Fortunately, compared to new vampires, we had one advantage: instantaneous teleportation. The carriage drew closer. Unfortunately, so did the monster, its foul breath nearly knocking me out. I remembered the dagger strapped to my calf. Crouching subtly, I gripped it, ready to draw. But before I could act, the monster lunged at me. Damn it, who said these things lacked intelligence? It had spotted me long ago. Propping myself up with one hand, I flipped out of its path just in time. Seeing me dodge so effortlessly, the monster opened its beak-like jaws and roared in fury. Yellowish, viscous saliva dripped from its fangs, revolting enough to make my skin crawl. The sound of hooves grew louder. Without hesitation, I yanked the dagger from my calf, leapt onto the monster's head in a few strides, clamped its thick neck between my thighs, and drove the blade downward, piercing its skull. Blood sprayed across my face. The monster collapsed with a thud, splashing muddy rainwater. At the same moment, the carriage was just steps from the tavern. As the monster writhed in agony, I stomped its head into the mud, calculating the carriage's approach. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. 1 second. Gritting my teeth, I yanked out the dagger. Blood gushed everywhere, soaking the tavern's dark awning in crimson, dripping steadily. I teleported onto the carriage's roof, crouched, and slid the dagger back into its sheath on my calf. Smiling at the tavern's proprietors, I said sorry. Feeling a bit insincere, I tossed her a gold coin. For the trouble. Under the shocked and terrified gazes of the onlookers, I casually grabbed the carriage's eaves and slipped into the compartment. Inside sat a noble woman and her maid, both startled by my blood-soaked appearance, staring wide-eyed. The compartment was spacious, roomy enough for 5, let alone 3. I gave them a friendly smile. Don't worry, I won't hurt you. I sat down naturally, not noticing the bloodstains soaking the lace cushions. I couldn't leave the city like this. Spotting a box in the corner, its lid ajar with a deep purple skirt spilling out like waves, I considered my options. Pulling out a gold coin, I asked, "May I buy a dress?" No one answered. I didn't expect them to. Placing the coin on the table, I said thanks. 5 minutes later, I was wearing a deep purple silk gown, its hem embroidered with elegant white roses and overlaid with black lace very much to my taste. I tossed another gold coin as a gesture of gratitude. Wiping the muddied blood from my face with a towel, I donned a wide-brimmed hat adorned with flowers and black netting to conceal my red eyes, which could easily startle passers-by. Judging by the carriage's direction, it was heading toward the city gates. I planned to part ways with the 2 shaken women once we left the city. But instead, the carriage veered toward the suburbs. Just as I was about to ask the noble woman its destination, the mandarin's voice came from outside the curtain. "The circus is near, madam." "Circus?" I rolled my eyes and turned to the maid. "You stay here. I'll accompany your mistress to the circus." The noble woman bit her lip, about to protest. I lifted my skirt, revealing the dagger strapped to my calf. No need to answer yet. Think it over. They were persuaded. If I weren't being hunted, I might have enjoyed a circus. I was born into a poor family, my father a dockworker, my mother unemployed, our family scraping by on his 1,000-franc annual income. Life was tough but peaceful, until my birth disrupted it. I was born with black hair and red eyes, while my parents had blonde hair and blue eyes. Because of this, my mother was often beaten by my father. At first, I pitied the bruises on her body, and urged her to leave him. But she called me a bastard, cursing me for being born. Later, I met my adoptive father. Compared to my biological parents, he was like a saint, feeding me, clothing me, teaching me to read and write, and instructing me in royal etiquette. But he was a monster in his own way, not because he desired me, but because, like my birth father, he was a violent sadist. For example, he made me read The Prince and write reflections on it. That was fine. But if my reflections didn't align with his views, he'd whip me and lock me in confinement. Over time, I couldn't take it anymore and escaped. But his lackeys were relentless, leading to the chase that started this mess. Growing up with either my birth father or adoptive father, I never had time for fun. Jump rope, hide-and-seek or circuses were luxuries I couldn't afford. The carriage passed through an arched wooden gate. Through the window I saw white tents and eerie blue torches. The posters on the bulletin board were vibrant with exaggerated lines. The closest one depicted a red-eyed bat with scarlet-lit pupils and a monkey-like face grinning wickedly. Below it was a line of scrawled, strange text. "Summon the vampire. Now performing. How amusing." This vampire had already invited herself. Following the noblewoman, I stepped out of the carriage. The manservant frowned at me, likely wondering why I was wearing his mistress's hat. But before he could speak, the noblewoman snapped, "What are you looking at?" led the way. The circus was unsettling, the air thick with the stench of blood and sweat, as if you could wring out a handful of foul crimson. Rusty iron cages lined the area, holding deformed men and women, newborn monstrosities, and even a cage with a deformed infant not yet a month old. I glanced at the noblewoman, surprised that someone so refined would enjoy such a spectacle. Entering the largest white tent, the smell of blood grew stronger. My self-control was strong. A lesser vampire might have already bared their fangs. The tent's interior resembled an ancient Roman Colosseum, with tiered seating in a circular arrangement. The noblewoman's seat was in the front row. Perhaps feeling safer among the crowd or excited by the scene, she relaxed and even spoke to me. "You really won't hurt me?" "No," I replied. "Good. This is a show I've been looking forward to. Even if you want to kill me, please wait until it's over." She unfolded a feather fan and fanned herself lazily. Her words didn't amuse me, they irritated me. I had a nagging feeling this circus wasn't about clowns juggling balls for children. I heard the suppressed yet excited breathing of the crowd and their pounding heartbeats. AB's tamer stood in the center of the tent, hands behind his back, an iron whip with fine barbs hanging from his waist, a weapon that could tear bloody flesh from a human with one strike. Behind him bubbled a cauldron of boiling oil. What were they planning? The thought had just crossed my mind when a loud, excited male voice rang out. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the freak show." A man in a three-piece suit stepped forward, leaning on a cane, bowing to the audience. "First, let's welcome our star, the child of the devil." From the back of the tent, an iron gate clanked open. Two scantily clad women holding a long iron chains onto doubt, eliciting whistles from the crowd. They pulled a cage covered with black cloth. The man pointed his cane at the cage, his voice brimming with passion. "Ladies and gentlemen, I guarantee this is the most deformed creature you've ever seen. He has the cunning golden slit pupils of a snake, a skull more terrifying than a skeleton, and skin more repulsive than a corpse. He is Satan's masterpiece, the pitiful yet hateful child of the devil. Please give him a round of applause." The audience erupted in enthusiastic clapping. What were these people thinking? The man yanked off the black cloth, revealing the child of the devil in the cage. A beam of white light shone on him. The so-called child of the devil was just a boy, no older than 16, curled up in the corner of the cage. His hands and feet were shackled, his head covered with a paper bag with 2 holes cut out, through which cold, numb golden eyes glinted. He was emaciated, his wrists, elbows, and ankles practically skin and bone. For some reason he reminded me of my past self. When my birth father was in a bad mood, he'd beat my face with a stick. Before my adoptive father took me in, my face was always bruised. Being fiercely proud, I didn't want the village to see my battered state, so I'd cover my head with a towel or paper bag, thinking it hid the marks. What was this child of the devil thinking? Did he believe that hiding behind a paper bag could shield him from cruel, mocking, or disdainful gazes? The man continued, "Today's performance is Summon the Vampire. But first, a little appetizer. Would you like to know what it feels like to have boiling oil splashed on you?" The audience fell silent. Then, voices erupted chaotically. "How could we know that? Stop teasing. Splash it on him. He's disgusting." Agreed. Splash the oil, splash the oil. Even the refined noblewoman beside me said, "I'd like to know what boiling oil feels like." I glanced at her. "Want to know? Jump into the cauldron yourself." "No rush, the answer is coming." The man turned to the beast tamer. "Open the cage and bring out our star." The beast tamer obeyed, striding to the cage, unlocking it with a clank, and grabbing the child of the devil by the collar to drag him out. Then, something unexpected happened. The boy seized the tamer's wrist and bit down hard. The audience gasped. The tamer, seemingly used to this, endured the pain, yanked the boy out, and lashed him with the iron whip. I saw the whip tear off a chunk of flesh, blood soaking the boy's clothes instantly. Yet he didn't make a sound, tearing off a strip of his pant leg to tie the wound and stop the bleeding. Tough kid. The tamer, enraged, kicked the boy aside and rushed to the cauldron, scooping up boiling oil with an iron ladle, ready to splash it on him. The crowd's chatter died down, everyone holding their breath, watching the tamer's movements. 1 step, 2 steps. Unable to watch any longer, I snatched the noblewoman's feather fan, covered my face, and raised my voice. "Enough, no common sense at all. You call this summoning a vampire? It's just a scam for money." The man halted the tamer and turned to me politely. "Madame, why do you say that? Even a 3-year-old knows vampires drink blood, but not just anyone's. They prefer the blood of beautiful young women. This child of the devil is so repulsive, it's questionable whether a vampire would even drink his blood, and you want to splash boiling oil on him." I paused, fanning myself deliberately. "I think you're trying to enrage the vampires and get us all killed." "Madame, that's not our intention." "Then prove it," I said impatiently. "We're all here to see vampires. Splashing oil on him will only cook him and anger the vampires. What's the point? Everyone here is someone of status. We don't want to be targeted by vampires because of a freak." Others chimed in, agreeing. They wanted a spectacle, not trouble. The man considered this, then ordered the tamer to discard the oil. "This lady makes a compelling point. Let's proceed with the summoning ritual. Please welcome our gypsy witch." The crowd roared with applause. I sighed in relief, closing the fan, only to meet the child of the devil's cold gaze. He was staring at me. "What for?" I tipped my hat slightly, smiling at him through the black netting. Chapter 2. He lowered his head, perhaps missing my friendly smile. On stage, the gypsy witch, amid thunderous applause, produced a crystal ball and began chanting softly. I couldn't help but worry, would their summoning ritual call me up there? It sounded thrilling, but I didn't want to be gawked at like a monkey. Looking back on this moment later, I couldn't help but laugh at how naive I was. I hadn't considered another possibility. They might summon the vampires hunting me. When a dozen red-eyed bats landed in the center of the tent, transforming into muscular white monsters, chaos erupted. Screams filled the air. The man swung his cane, trying to drive the bats away, shouting at the gypsy witch, "What's going on? Didn't you say this spell only summons blue-eyed bats?" Blue-eyed bats were even lower than red-eyed ones, with minimal aggression and rare attacks on humans. No wonder they dared summon vampires publicly. They were aiming for the harmless kind. As for why blue-eyed bats turned into red-eyed ones, it was obviously connected to me. Time to leave. I stood, but the noble woman grabbed my arm, pleading, "Please take me with you." If she hadn't made that comment about boiling oil, I might have been kind enough to help. But she'd crossed a line. I pointed at the exorcism powder on her waist with my fan. "You'll be fine. Those red-eyed bats won't harm you with that." My adoptive father once said I was kind but weak. He didn't know me well. I'm not kind at all. Kind people save everyone, giving them chances for redemption. I save who I want, based on my whims. Like now. Teleporting to the tent's entrance, I was about to leave when I glanced back. 3 white monsters were circling the child of the devil. As he dodged, they tore the paper bag from his head. The moment his face was exposed, he let out a beastly roar, veins bulging on his forehead, and covered his face with his arms, curling up motionless on the ground. No wonder the host called him the ultimate freak. How to put it? He was indeed quite ugly. So ugly that my compassion stirred. No one here deserved pity. They abused deformed performers, treated them like livestock, and toyed with their lives. Summoning red-eyed bats was their just desserts. But the performers were innocent. I couldn't save them all, but I could save this one. Hesitating briefly, I ran to his side and grabbed his bony wrist. "Come with me." He didn't respond. The white monsters noticed me, closing in. No time to explain, I scooped him up by the waist, teasing, "Not coming? Fine, big sister will carry you." Still no reaction. If he weren't clutching his face, I'd think he'd fainted from fear. I thought for a moment, then placed my flower-adorned hat on his face. Finally, a reaction, he moved his hand to hold the hat. Teleporting to the circus's arched wooden gate, I escaped the monsters. But the rest of the way would be on foot. Old vampires had the edge of teleportation, but our stamina was far inferior to new vampires, making the advantage negligible in many cases. Still, our strength and speed outmatched red-eyed bats, so I never took my adoptive father's pursuit seriously. But I forgot another group was also after me. "Claris, if His Majesty knew you were so close to someone else, he'd go mad." Atop the white tent, a man crouched, staring down at me coldly. Dressed in a black cloak, he had the typical new vampire look: sharp features, pale lips, holding a witch silver crossbow glowing with magical light, its arrow aimed at my heart. The boy in my arms stirred. Thinking he was scared, I whispered, "Don't be afraid," then looked up, chuckling. "Come on, we both know why your majesty is after me. It's because he was once my blood servant." "Come back with me," the man said, raising the crossbow. "Or I'll kill you." "You can't beat me," I said bluntly. "But I can kill you. Try it." As soon as I spoke, a whoosh sounded, and my expression changed. The man was despicable without another word. He fired at the boy in my arms. In a split second, I caught the witch silver arrow with my bare hand. Witch silver caused irreversible damage to vampires, and soon, my palm smoked, sizzling like charred flesh. I frowned, about to curse him, when the boy snatched the arrow from my hand, his voice low and clear. "Leave me." His voice was indescribably captivating. I froze. "Go deal with him. I can protect myself." Before I could respond, another arrow came. I caught it barehanded again, the burning pain returning. Now I was furious. Setting the boy down, I drew the dagger from my calf, leapt onto a nearby hay cart, and teleported behind the man, aiming for his throat in a flash. To my surprise, he was so stubborn that even with my dagger inches from his throat, he kept aiming at the boy, ready to pull the trigger. I redirected the dagger, slashing his wrist, but the arrow still fired. As his wrist was severed, I jumped from the tent, rushed to the boy, and grabbed the arrow. My hand was already corroded, exposing bone and flesh, but I'd saved him. Smiling lightly, I was about to tease him when his expression shifted. "Behind you." Too late. I'd exhausted all my strength. I looked down slowly. A silver arrowhead protruded from my chest, blood soaking my purple dress. It hadn't pierced my heart, but it was close enough either way. I was doomed. Still, there was a slight difference. Before the witch silver poison reached my heart, I had one last chance to fight back. Hiding my hand behind my back, I yanked out the arrow and hurled it at the man. With his hand severed, his reflexes were slow. The arrow pierced his chest, blue blood splattering the white tent. Before dying, he gave me a triumphant smile, then fell backward. The footsteps of the muscular monsters approached from behind. Gritting my teeth, I scooped up the boy and ran toward the circus's exit. The sky neared dusk, clouds blood-rayed. I hated sunsets. Before I could think for myself, I thought it was because I had a poet's heart, linking sunsets to decline. Later, I realized it was because my birth father came home at dusk. My evenings were spent either being beaten or hearing my mother's screams. Perhaps because I'd just done a good deed, my spirit felt elevated. This dusk, I was unusually calm. Reaching a village in the suburbs, walking through wide fields, I realized I hadn't asked the boy's name. Smiling, I looked down, only to find him staring at me. Meeting my gaze, his eyes flickered away briefly before locking onto my face. "Why did you save me?" The witch silver poison was creeping toward my heart, clouding my mind. I spoke on instinct. "No reason. I like you." No, like wasn't right. I was about to say admire when he asked, "You're Claris." I nodded. "And you?" He paused for a long time before answering, "Eric." I smiled faintly. "Nice to meet you, Eric. I have things to do, so I'll go now. Goodbye." He grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Will you die?" I blinked. "What? You can teleport, so you're a vampire. Witch silver is deadly to vampires, and that arrow nearly pierced your heart." He didn't attack again, likely because he was sure you'd die. His logic was chillingly clear. "So tell me, will you die?" I was stunned for a moment before saying, "Yes." He didn't hesitate. "How can I save you?" I was about to tell him which silver poison was incurable, but he looked only about 15. A kid used as a circus stool. He didn't need to face life and death. With my last shred of compassion, I said, "It's fine. I'll drink some blood later." In truth, I hadn't drunk human blood in ages, relying on animal blood instead. Long-term animal blood weakened a vampire's senses, which is why I'd been injured so easily. Hearing this, he bit his wrist and offered it to my lips. "Drink." Normal humans couldn't pierce skin with their teeth, but he did so decisively. Touched, I shook my head to refuse, but the scent of his blood was overwhelmingly enticing. They say the more captivating the soul, the sweeter the blood. His was intoxicatingly sweet. What kind of soul did he have? My fangs pressed against my lip uncontrollably. I lowered my head, drinking from his wound. So sweet, I wanted more. My hunger took over, and for the first time I succumbed to my beastly instincts, savagely draining his blood. When I came to, he lay pale and lifeless, eyes closed. Without thinking, I bit my wrist, pressed it to his lips, and forced him to drink. As his face regained color, I slumped beside him, head pounding. What had I done? Created a vampire? For vampires, the first embrace was akin to procreation, a grave act. No vampire would do it so recklessly, let alone drain someone's blood and exchange it so brutally. My adoptive father would carefully select candidates, take them to a remote castle, and gradually exchange blood over 10 days, with mentors guiding the new vampire in controlling their instincts. The more I thought, the more I regretted lying. But it was done. I kept feeding him blood. Vampires could control their offspring's power through the amount of blood exchanged. I'd heard giving all your blood could create a vampire stronger than yourself. I didn't know if it was true. I'd never tried. No one was as unlucky as me, creating an offspring on the brink of death. At 3/4 exchange, a miracle happened. His scarred, burned skin began to heal, his gaunt face filling out. His bone structure wasn't bad, high nose, sharp features, but old and new scars had hidden his true appearance. Vampire healing could even cure congenital deformities, a silver lining. An hour later his face was fully restored, a face that would be praised anywhere. His hair was the color of a cold night, his eye sockets deep, his skin smooth, his jaw sharp and refined. Even if the circus people found him now, they wouldn't recognize him. I wanted to wait for him to wake and explain, but my body was too weak. I might faint and never wake up. He'd suffered enough performing like livestock and now turned into a vampire. Not dying beside him was my final kindness. Though vampires had eternal life and healing, was that a blessing or a curse? A vampire without a creator was like a human orphan. I could imagine him being bullied. Sighing, I placed my dagger in his palm and whispered, "I'm sorry. Stay safe." Reflecting on my short life, I realized it was either being beaten by my birth father or confined by my adoptive father. The one time I showed kindness as a girl, taking in a new vampire as a servant, he rose to become the vampire king and now hunted me. And before dying I'd abandoned my offspring. They say you find peace at death, but I couldn't fathom why I was so unlucky, hoping for better luck in the next life, hoping he'd be luckier too. I staggered to a nearby river, glanced back at Eric, spread my arms, and leapt into the shimmering, twilight-lit waters. Chapter 3. As the river engulfed me, I seemed to sink into a long dream. A man's voice asked, "What's your name?" I heard myself reply, "Claris." "No vampire would choose such a foolish name," he said. "How about garnet? Ever seen a garnet stone?" I shook my head. "It's like your eyes." It took me a while to realize the man was my adoptive father. I didn't know his real name. Everyone called him Duke Hades, an old vampire nearly 300 years old. He owned vast estates in England, France and Germany, unimaginably wealthy. While the vampire king hunted me, he courted my adoptive father with utmost respect, a stark contrast to his treatment of me. For a long time I thought Duke Hades was a god sent to save me. Then I learned he saved me because he liked my eyes and wanted to set them in a ring. I endured his beatings and curses, but that was too much. Hades in Greek myth was the god of the underworld, symbolizing death and darkness. My adoptive father was dark indeed. Perhaps because I was dying, my memories were like a shattered mirror, reflecting fragments of different times. I stood before those shards, seeing myself blindfolded, forced to fight a massive black scorpion. When I finally leapt onto its shell and pierced its head, murky fluid splattered, and the scorpion collapsed. My adoptive father pointed at me, untold a guard, 30 lashes. I tore off the blindfold, staring at him in disbelief. "Why?" he replied calmly, "that was my pet." "Why do you think?" I saw myself thrust into a pomegranate red ballet dress, dancing a whip turn on the scorpion's shell. I knew nothing of ballet, and the whip turn was one of its hardest moves. It took me over 10 hours to get it right, just because he thought beauty and monsters were the perfect pairing. After that, I avoided ballet performances at opera houses. My life was a mess. Death was a relief. Goodbye to everyone I'd ever met. I don't understand why the audience only clapped for her. What's so great about her? Why else? A girl's voice sneered. Her 2 lumps of flesh, obviously. I saw her flirting with the Count today. My God, you didn't see it. It was hilarious. The Count didn't even glance at her, just stared at her chest, probably thinking she was a fat cow. Not like us, covering up properly. She's practically a courtesan. No way, most courtesans have skin whiter than snow. Hers is dirty and yellow, like butter nibbled by rats. If she's a courtesan, all men must be blind. Who were these people? What were they talking about? So noisy. She might have native blood. That's disgusting. My grandma said natives are the most savage people, eating roasted white folks. Staying in a dance troupe with someone like that is dangerous. Why doesn't the manager kick her out? Maybe she showed the manager her lumps too. The girls burst into mocking laughter. So noisy. Annoyingly noisy. I snapped my eyes open, finding myself in a cramped room, lit by faint candlelight casting mottled shadows on the walls. Where was I? The bed was hard, no mattress. I hadn't slept on such a bed in ages. Sitting up, my elbow hit the frame, and in an instant, I realized this wasn't my body. It was heavy, young, with sallow skin and thickly calloused toes. Wait, hadn't I died? Why was I alive in someone else's body? Before I could make sense of it, the door was kicked open, and 3 heavily made-up girls stormed in. "Carolina, I heard you try to seduce the Count again." Hearing Carolina, my foggy mind cleared slightly. 2 minutes later, piecing together their taunts and the body's fragmented memories, I gathered key information. This body was Carolina, a Latinx ballet apprentice at an opera house. Average-looking but with a curvaceous figure, radiating womanly charm at a young age. Men adored her, women despised her. As for why I was in her body, it had to be some form of soul transfer or possession. Some might mind inhabiting another's body, but I'd face death calmly. Resurrection was a gift others could only dream of. "Why aren't you talking?" another girl sneered. feeling guilty now, too late. I stood, stretching my less nimble limbs, and walked to the room's only mirror. Honestly, the face wasn't bad: thick hair, dark brows, deep double eyelids. Though the skin was rough and sallow, the lips were full and glossy pink. No wonder men liked her. Even I'd favor her. Picking up a comb, I untangled the knotted hair, tying it back while smiling at them. Do I look guilty to you? There's a saying, if fists can solve it, don't waste words. Though this body was weaker than my old one, dealing with 3 girls was child's play. 10 seconds later, I walked out, glancing at the ceiling, unsure what to do next. Before my revival, my schedule was always packed by others, leaving little time to ponder life. I used to complain about having no time for myself. Now, with freedom, I didn't know where to start. After thinking, I decided to buy a newspaper to learn about this place. The girls spoke French, but French was spoken in many places, so I wasn't sure if this was France. I thought I'd quickly reach the street to buy a paper, assuming the theater wasn't large based on my room. But after wandering for ages, I was still in corridors, the surroundings growing increasingly opulent. Leaf-shaped wall lamps glowed, reliefs vivid, the decor more lavish than any palace I'd seen. My room must be a servant's quarters or worse. Half an hour later, I gave up finding the theater's exit and followed fragmented memories to the backstage. It was a chaotic mix of people: noble lords, dancers smoking cheap tobacco, naive young apprentices, washed-up actresses drowning sorrows in wine. The air reeked of smoke, sweat, cheap perfume, and the bitter, sour stench of soap from laundry women who'd left clothes unwashed too long. Pity the upper crust, forced to pinch their noses while chatting with dancers. I found discarded newspapers on the floor, some with shoe prints, others intact. Picking up a few, I leaned against a wooden pillar and read carefully. The first, titled Paris Vampire Hunters, Association claims witch silver weapons may not fully kill vampires. A major discovery, possibly tied to my revival. I read eagerly only to find the editor's note whether this is true or not, and whether the Paris Vampire Hunters Association actually said this. Your editor doesn't know. I sighed. At least I knew this was Paris. The second, titled Vampire Hunters Ranking Updated, is forever #1. I thought it was a tabloid, but it was a reputable paper. The Hunters ranking was based on kills, fame, and wealth. My eyes landed on the top name, just a letter G. I didn't know much about hunters, only that the first was born from hellfire, trading love, pity, and compassion for a deal with the devil, gaining strength and healing beyond vampires but lacking their eternal life and sharp senses. The third, titled When Will Discrimination End? Should Vampire Hunters Exist? I rubbed my eyes. Vampire hunters? What? Vampire hunters should all die. A fat mechanic slammed his beer can on a table. I swear they don't drink animal blood in private. Only you fools believe they don't drink human blood. The wall rat incident was solved by G, free of charge. Without him, we'd all be dead. How can you say that? Someone retorted. The mechanic, red-faced, shouted, he's so rich he owns a house on the Champs-Élysées. Why would he care about our few francs? Vampire hunters should all die. Say that to his face. If he shows up again, I'll punch him in the face. I watched amused. Men's arguments were entertaining bluster without substance. By the last line, the mechanic was clearly scared but kept up the act for the crowd. Talking behind G's back was this timid facing him. He'd probably wet himself. I grew curious about G. A vampire hunter fascinating. A stern female voice cut through. Quiet, all of you. Take your fights to the manager. Mr. G is coming soon. The wall rat issue isn't fully resolved. Unless you want to sleep to the sound of rats gnawing flesh. Behave. The speaker was a middle-aged woman in a black dress, holding a black cane, sterner than a monastery matron. Whether due to her authority or G's reputation, the backstage fell silent. Footsteps approached. First I saw a balding man with a mustache and round glasses. He didn't match my image of G, and I felt disappointed. Then a tall, imposing figure stepped past him, standing beside the woman. He wore a light grey shirt, leather gloves, and a black high-collared cloak reaching his ankles, revealing sharp-lined boots. I couldn't see his face, only his jet-black hair, sharp jaw, and a glowing ruby ring on his pinky. Chapter 4. As his cloak swayed, I noticed a gold badge on his collar, a shield with a ruby-eyed python coiled around across knight's swords. I'd seen it before. Looking at the newspaper, the badge was pictured below the hunter's ranking, with a detailed explanation of their hierarchy. Vampire hunters were a royally sanctioned justice organization with a strict hierarchy. Advancing a rank required rigorous tests in social influence. The highest rank was gold with 6 stars, signifying the blood of 6 epic level, and just creatures. I couldn't see the badge's stars, but G, consistently topping the ranks, was surely gold 6 star. My interest in him grew. I'd never met hunters but heard they were cold-blooded mercenaries, claiming justice while chasing gold. They hated all bloodsuckers, just or not. I thought vampires and hunters would never ally unless the world ended, yet here was a vampire hunter. Mr. G, the woman said, her sternness replaced by deference. Sorry to trouble you with such a small matter. It's fine, G replied, his voice low and cool, like falling snow in a silent night or a sea painted with twilight's glow so captivating it could be described with any beautiful metaphor. His voice alone explained why a hunter of his caliber bothered with theater affairs. G lifted his cloak's hem, knelt on one knee, and extended a slender finger, conjuring a wisp of blue flame. He pointed at the wall, and the flame spread, engulfing it without smoke or damage to the wooden beams. The brick wall turned transparent under the blaze, revealing grotesque creatures inside. Wool rats, fat and terrifying, their fur matted with lime and dried blood, they no longer resembled rats. Red eyes, sharp fangs, hooked claws, they were gnawing a fresh corpse. Someone gasped, That's Buk, the mechanic. He didn't leave the theater, he was dragged into the wall by the rats. The woman said, frowning. G stood, his voice emotional as. Did he enjoy torturing cats and dogs? Buk liked gin, which clouds the mind. After drinking he'd got a kitten, but what's a kitten got to do with his death? G crossed his arms, twisting the ruby ring without answering. A supporter jumped in. Cats catch rats. What do you think? The man flushed, speechless. The woman asked, How do we deal with the wall rats? Simple, G said. He muttered a spell, and within a second, the rats squealed, their bloated bodies writhing. The blue flame sliced their bellies, spilling red guts and white bones. The woman turned away in disgust, telling others, Look and see if you recognize anyone. Some vomited, others paled, perhaps recalling their own cruelty to animals. Buk, the worst offender, was the first to face his karma. As the saying goes, there are no natural disasters, only consequences. I felt no pity for them, only regret they didn't suffer Buk's fate. After dealing with the rats, G prepared to leave. The theater manager Grove led, thanking him profusely. G dismissed him with, last time, implying no more theater favors. The manager's face turned ashen. I grew curious about Hunter's social status. Theater managers weren't always elites but mingled with high society, sometimes performing for royalty. Yet this manager humbled himself before a hunter, suggesting their influence far exceeded my pre-revival world. To become elite, being a hunter seemed the fastest route. Water flows downward, but people strive upward. Seeing G's respect, I wanted to try being a hunter. But that was for later. For now, I needed to understand my environment and this body's relationships. I stayed to clean backstage with the servant women. From their chatter I learned the middle-aged woman was Madame Giy, first name unknown, the ballet Rupin School's overseer. The servants weren't talkative, disliking young, pretty dancers. As we cleaned, I felt their disdainful glances. Wondering how to extract information, I overheard one say, You're really sending your kid to hunter school? The fee's 120 francs. My family of 4 couldn't save that in a month without starving. Think carefully. Another whispered, glancing around, I heard G was once a street urchin. If a urchin can rise that high, why not my kid? These days, you either get drained by vampires or torn apart by hellhounds. What's the point of saving money? Better to bet on a chance to become elite. Makes sense, but 120 francs is steep. If it works, it's a 100-fold return. She stopped as Madame Giy approached, glaring coldly. They fell silent, working diligently. 120 francs was pocket change to my old self, but for Carolina, it was 2 months' living allowance. Though the theater provided food and lodging, ballet dancers had expenses: point shoes, tips for law and dresses to iron clothes, perfume, and hair cream left little to save. Oddly, learning of these hardships didn't depress me, it excited me. The last time I felt this was when I decided to escape my adoptive father. Days later, through newspapers, gossip, and relentless questioning, I pieced together Paris's current state. It was 1870, 30 years after my death. 30 years had transformed society. The conflict between old and new vampires had escalated, sparked by the Vampire King's assassination of an old vampire duke's beloved daughter. It took me 10 minutes to realize that daughter was me, followed by a wave of embarrassment. Since then, old and new vampires were sworn enemies. Old vampires, led by Duke Hades, migrated to England and France, allying with the Vampire Hunters Association. Hunters split into two factions: conservatives, refusing vampire ties, and reformists, open to cooperation but against enhancing vampire hunters' bodies. Vampire hunters were essentially vampires by nature. The world had changed too fast for me to keep up, and it seemed to stem from me. But anyone with a brain knew the beloved daughter was just an excuse for power grabs. Wars and thrones always needed such pretexts. I planned to enroll in hunter school in 2 months. But an unexpected event disrupted my plans. On a cold night, girls in thin silk dresses rehearsed an intermezzo on stage. When my turn came, the servant women stopped cleaning to point at my chest and hips, as if a woman showing confidence and curves was destined to become a prostitute. I hated this mindset. Seeing them stare, I danced provocatively, lifting my skirt to my thighs and smiling seductively. Their faces soured, and my mood brightened until Madame Giry scolded, "Carolina, this isn't a cabaret. Dance like that again, and you're off the stage tomorrow." Madame Giry wasn't to be crossed. I nodded obediently, about to make promises when a girl behind me collapsed, convulsing, clutching her chest, and fainting. "Meg." "Madame Giry, Meg's fainted." "What do we do? Call a doctor." The girls crowded around. Madame Giry forgot me, rushing over. The fainted girl was her daughter, Meg Giry, a kind, sweet girl, the only one who'd shown me kindness. I wanted to check on her, but the girls screamed, scattering. Meg's eyes snapped open, white and cloudy, a dark green tentacle writhing from her mouth, its suckers pulsing, dripping yellow pus. She was possessed by a demon. Chapter 5. 30 years ago, demons were rare, mostly confined to deep-sea trenches. But recently they'd emerged, washing ashore and encroaching on human lands. No one knew how they adapted from the ocean depths. My adoptive father once said these trench demons only seemed adapted to land, retaining deep-sea traits: fear of heat, bright light, and slow heartbeats. They needed to parasitize land creatures to survive. The creature in Meg's mouth was a tentacle shed by Kraken, a sea monster. Kraken, an epic-level beast, had tentacles as long as islands, dragging ships into the abyss. Sometimes it surfaced, disguising itself as a lush island to lure sailors. Imagine weary sailors anchoring, hoping for fruit or game, only to find a maw of sharp teeth. Fortunately, Kraken couldn't reach land, only causing havoc at sea. But it shed tentacles to hunt humans on land, gaining strength to survive ashore by consuming them. Kraken tentacles lacked intelligence, slowly eroding their host's organs. Once detached, they became colorless, odorless liquid, rooting in the stomach. Initially, their suckers clung to the stomach lining, absorbing nutrients, sprouting buds that grew into tentacles, emerging from the host's orifices after a year. Meg's case, the tentacle was budding. Soon, her body would become a vessel for it. Removing it was simple yet complex. A skilled magical hunter had to transfer the tentacle to their body, let it root, and burn it with exorcism flames like G's blue fire. Hunters' superior healing made this safe, but finding such a hunter was hard, and they might not help a mere dancer. I looked at Meg with mixed feelings. I liked and pitied her but could do nothing. She was likely doomed. "Doctor, the doctor's here." "Madame Giry, the doctor's here." A young man with a metal cane approached, wearing a white shirt and brown suspenders, his right foot a wooden and brass prosthetic. "Doctor, please save poor Meg. Please," Madame Giry said hoarsely. "I beg you." "I'll try," the doctor replied. He knelt awkwardly, opened his medical kit, and took a vial of blue solution, dripping it onto the tentacle. I widened my eyes, too late to stop him. The solution hit the tentacle like a tear, and it passed, writhing like a scalded insect, trying to retreat into Meg's stomach. The girls sighed in relief, unaware this was the worst outcome. Meg's stomach couldn't contain the tentacle, and forcing it back would rupture her. In a flash, I rushed forward, pushed the doctor aside, and grabbed the tentacle. Everyone stared, confused. Madame Giry shouted, "Carolina, you lunatic, let go. Are you trying to kill my daughter? Release it." No time to explain. The startled tentacle trembled, trying to retreat. I closed my eyes, rapidly recalling my knowledge. Seconds later, I pinched Meg's jaw, forcing her mouth open, and reached in, gripping the tentacle's root to immobilize it. A girl, pale with fear, stammered, "Carolina, how could you do this to Meg? I thought you were just greedy, but you're evil, wanting her dead." I shot them a cold glance. "I'm not the one killing her, the doctor is." Turning to him, I said, "Who taught you to use solution 267 on Kraken tentacles? It burns vampires but only agitates other demons, making them violent. If I hadn't grabbed it, it would have torn her stomach to shreds." Madame Giroy fell silent. The girls, stunned, murmured, "Doctor, that's not solution 267, right?" I stared at the doctor. He couldn't meet my gaze, sweating profusely. I don't know, the academy didn't make us memorize the solution manual. I thought it worked on demons. "Wait," he said, relieved, "I have the Vampire Hunters Association's exorcism manual. It'll have the solutions number." Under everyone's eyes, he put on glasses and flipped through a 5-centimeter thick book. I rolled my eyes. Calling him a quack was AP the embodied it. I wanted to kick the book away, but without him confirming the number, they wouldn't trust me. 30 seconds later he gasped, "My God, it is solution 267, miss. How did you know?" "It's in the book. How do you think?" Taking a deep breath, I lied. "My grandmother was a renowned witch doctor." A girl snapped, "Witch doctor? Your grandmother was a backward native." Ignoring her, I pointed at a pink solution in the kit. "Give me that." The doctor hesitated. "Miss, do you have a medical license? These solutions are regulated by the association." I said calmly, "That's solution 120, for calming and reducing agitation. From the moment you drip solution 267, this girl became your accident patient. If she dies, I can call the medical tribunal to investigate. If they find her death was due to your mistake, your license, regardless of your rank or connections, will be revoked. Don't want her to die? Do as I say." He clenched his fists, gritted his teeth, and handed me the pink solution. I pried open the vial's cork and dripped it onto the tentacle. The effect was immediate. It stopped writhing. I sighed quietly, wiping sweat from my brow, and reached out. "Green solution." He didn't hand it over, peering at Meg. "It's calm now, right?" I grabbed the tentacle, shaking it, startling the girls. "It's still in her mouth, and you say it's fine?" He gave an awkward laugh. "Tell me the green solution's number and effect." "Solution 54, anesthetic and hallucinogenic." He fumbled through the manual, found the number, and handed me the solution, now respectful. I steadied my nerves and dripped it carefully. "Third row, second light green solution," I said without looking up. "Solution 37, muscle relaxment." 30 seconds later he verified it and handed me the vial, his movements cautious. The crowd's gazes shifted from skepticism to disbelief. After 6 solutions, 1 remained. I glanced at the kit. 6th row, third purple solution, shrinks demon size. He picked up the vial, hesitated, and put it back. "This is too expensive, the costliest solution." "You haven't paid." "Oh," I nodded. "Then let her die. It's not my license at stake." As I stood, he and Madame Giroy grabbed me. "Save Meg." "I know you can." Madame Giroy's eyes were bloodshot, her voice hoarse. "Please." I paused, turned to the doctor, and held out my hand. "Give it to me." After 7 solutions, the tentacle wilted, shrinking into a soft, thin strip. Solution 37 relaxed its suckers, detaching them from Meg's stomach. I could now pull it out safely, moving gently to avoid waking it. This was my improvised plan based on the situation, hopefully effective. Otherwise, all those lashes I took memorizing solutions were for nothing. I flexed my fingers, grasping the tentacle. Its slimy suckers brushed my skin, sending chills through me. The hall fell silent, everyone watching my movements, barely breathing. Thump, thump, my racing heartbeat echoed. With a squelch like rubber soles on wet stone, I pulled out half the tentacle, dragging out yellow pus. Someone gagged. "So gross, poor Meg, possessed by something so vile. If I were her, I'd rather die." "Exactly," another agreed. Saving her was priority. I took a deep breath, ignoring the idiots, focusing on the tentacle. But fools always come in groups. As I nearly extracted it, a shrill voice rang out, "What are you doing? Why's rehearsal taking so long?" "I'm falling asleep backstage." "It's just an intermezzi, can't you hurry, HH?" A monster. As expected of the theater's prima donna, her voice, its pitch, range, and power woke the tentacle effortlessly. All my work and done. Well, not entirely. I had pulled it from Meg's body. But now it latched onto my arm. I considered using solution 50 for again to anesthetize it. But having been burned once, it refused to absorb it, growing 10 times more agitated. Its suckers gripping my skin, bruising my veins. Great. My new life still began with bad luck from doing good. Chapter 6. Though I saved Meg's life, I didn't expect anyone to save mine. Human nature is inherently selfish, and not holding out hope for others makes life easier. Sitting on the floor, I quietly watched the girls scatter like frightened birds. The doctor, in a panic, slung his medical kit over his shoulder and limped away. Terrified, I grab him and waste more of his expensive solutions. Looking down at my fingers, now writhing tentacles, I glanced calmly at Madame Giry, waiting for her to kick me out. To my surprise, she helped Meg to her feet, approached me, and whispered, "Come with me," not throwing me out. I froze for a moment, then stood and followed. We passed through a long corridor to the theatre's true servant quarters, far more luxurious and comfortable than my little nook. A glowing magical lamp lit the room as bright as day. This old woman's theatre salary must be substantial. Not everyone could afford a magical lamp. What do you want to say? The tentacles had rooted into my flesh, sending sharp, needle-like pain intermittently. Every calm word I spoke came with intense agony. Madame Giry settled Meg onto the bed, wiped the dirt from her face with a handkerchief, and tucked her in gently. Then she went to the wardrobe, pulled out a loose black cloak, and tossed it into my arms. Meg is my only child, my reason to keep going. You saved her, which is like saving me. I won't let you die. I caught the cloak, stunned. What? Still upset I scolded you? You never told me you knew solution science. Rushing in and pushing the doctor aside, anyone would think the worst. I shook my head. It's human nature. I don't blame you. I was so scared my heart stopped. If anything had happened to Meg, I'd have dragged you to hell with me. Thank goodness, though your actions were rash and reckless, I'm deeply grateful for them. She pointed to the cloak. Put it on. I'll take you to the underdistrict's entrance. The underdistrict, another term I'd never heard. I didn't ask questions, and during the searing pain as I clenched my teeth, shook out the cloak, and draped it over myself. Pulling up the hood, I turned to leave, but Madame Giry stood still, her expression complex, making me pause. What's wrong? I kept waiting for you to ask for help, she sighed. I didn't expect you to be so strong. Looks can be deceiving. I smiled faintly. If looks determined character, the king would be the most beautiful man in the world. She smiled back and dropped the subject. At midnight, Paris seemed half asleep. The streets were empty save for a few taverns flickering with dim light. Men in top hats and three-piece suits, canes under their arms and briar pipes in hand, pointed and whispered at passing prostitutes. We entered a winding, shadowy alley, passed through to barren groves, and arrived at an overgrown, dry well. I once did him a favor. Madame Giry stopped and handed me an envelope stamped with a red skull. I don't know if this favor carries enough weight to save your life. This is a blank letter. Take it to the Vampire Hunters Association in the Underdistrict and find Mr. G. Whether he'll help depends on your luck. Thanks. I thought for a moment and asked, You haven't told me what the Underdistrict is. You don't know? She was surprised. The Underdistrict is an underground city designed by a master architect, a place for professional and freelance vampire hunters to live and trade. This well is the entrance. Be warned, not all hunters are good people. Watch out for black cloak swindlers. I nodded. Got it, thanks. I didn't ask why she wasn't coming with me. Getting a favor from a top hunter was more than I expected, especially since she could have ignored my help entirely. Sitting on the well's edge, I closed my eyes, sensing the faint hum of a teleportation array below. She wasn't lying. Tucking the envelope into my cloak's inner pocket, I held my breath and jumped. In less than 2 seconds, I landed. The scene before me was unlike anything I'd seen. Greenish-gray steam and smog filled the air, accompanied by the clanking of machinery. The ceiling mimicked a starry night sky, but closer inspection revealed cracked stone walls. Houses clung to the hills, rising and falling in waves. Golden streetleted towered, stone bridges arched grandly, and iron-cabled elevators creaked. The streets bustled with burly hunters or mysterious black-cloaked merchants. The air quality was poor, and combined with the pain in my arm, I soon felt dizzy. Fortunately, the Underdistrict had clear signposts, preventing aimless wandering. I headed straight for the Vampire Hunters Association, A cloaked merchant approached, waving a white vial. Miss, try our latest skin bleaching solution guaranteed to make you the fairest beauty. Thanks, but no. I dyed my skin yellow on purpose. Which silver cross? Look at this, miss. 97% pure witch silver. Thanks, I'm allergic. I sidestepped him and kept walking. Animal blood, specially crafted, tastes just like human blood. At that, I swallowed hard, recalling the sweet, quenching taste of a boy's blood, unforgettable after one sip. I wondered how he was now, if he was still alive. After nearly 10 minutes, I reached the Vampire Hunters Association. The dark grey fortress perched on a steep cliff, its grand exterior adorned with columns and stained glass windows depicting the first hunters' heroic deeds. Two silver-armored guards stood at the black gate, saying sternly, "No entry for outsiders." I pulled out the red skull letter and waved it. "I'm here for Mr. G. This is his letter, with his personal seal." One guard reached out. "Let me see." "No way. Something this valuable can't be handed over." "But what if it's fake? Who'd forge Mr. G's letter? Are they tired of living? Even if it's fake, wouldn't I be exposed when I meet him? What's the point?" I feigned impatience. "Let me in. If you delay Mr. G's business, you'll regret it." Guards and gatekeepers are classic bullies, weak to the strong. The more confident you sound, the less they dare cross you. As expected, my bold tone made them lower their heads, salute respectfully, and bow maybe too respectfully. A tall shadow loomed over me. No way, it couldn't be that the one time I lied, I'd get caught by the man himself. I pulled off my hood and turned slowly, meeting a pair of deep, golden eyes. The man wore a dark grey coat and black leather gloves, his posture as upright as the fortress beside him. His sharp jawline and well-proportioned lips gave a cold, unapproachable air. I'd seen that face days ago, and his profile with the single-letter alias graced countless papers. "The vampire hunter, Mr. G." He looked at me coolly. "What do you want?" One sentence, and I understood why rumors said some hunters traded love and mercy to the devil for pure power. His eyes held no trace of human emotion. He was a talking, killing machine. I handed him the letter. "Madam Giy said I could ask for your help." He glanced at it, didn't take it, and walked ahead. "Follow me." I started to follow, but after 2 steps, a wave of dizziness hit, and I swayed, nearly collapsing. I couldn't faint on the street, better to faint in the association's territory. If I passed out here, Mr. G might leave me. I clenched my teeth, digging my nails into my palm until warm blood coated my fingers. Through my blurred vision, Mr. G seemed to glance back, his eyes briefly shocked. It had to be my imagination, his cold face showing surprise was too bizarre. That was my last thought before blacking out. Chapter 7. I dreamed I returned to the vampire capital, the legendary sunless city of Nosopur. Legend said the first vampires couldn't walk in sunlight, so the progenitor with powerful mages created a floating city in a sunless realm, named Nosopur, meaning city without daylight. In Nosopur, the sky, rivers, even plants were cold, somber hues, like a grand painting splashed with indelible deep blue ink. The last time I visited Nosopur was when summoned by the vampire king, Augustus. He wasn't called that when he was my blood servant, just Marshal. He later changed it, per Seer's advice, to commemorate his August coronation. But it really hinted his glory rivaled Rome's founder, Octavian Augustus. Entering the lavish grand hall, I saw the king on his throne. Unlike traditional vampires with black hair and pale lips, he had shoulder-length, lustrous silver hair, a straight nose, and overly refined eyes and lips. His ankle-length black robe made him look less like a king and more like a melancholic bard. "Your Majesty," I said, meeting his gaze for a second before lowering my head, hand on chest. "We're alone, Master. But you're still Your Majesty." He was silent for a moment. "Have you considered my proposal?" For some reason he loved acting humble before me, even after casually ending a life. His cautious tone seemed meant to win my sympathy and achieve his goals. But I knew him too well. His pitiful exterior was like bioluminescent algae, beautiful, breathtaking, yet deadly to fish. "Your Majesty, we're not meant for each other. It's impossible." His pupils turned red, a chilling emotion in his eyes. "Why? Because of my status? Claris, you're not a true duchess either." I wanted to say I'd love a beggar if I truly cared, but that would only enrage him further. His pride was immense, evident in the name he chose. I took a different tack, attacking his pride. "I don't like men weaker than me." "I'm the king now," he growled. "Are you?" I paused, smiling. But our master-servant bond remains. Do you know what a blood servant is? Without giving him time to react, I locked eyes with him and commanded, "Kneel." Instantly he rose from his throne like a puppet, his knees slamming to the ground. His Adam's apple bobbed, veins bulging, and his crowned head bowed. "No matter how powerful you become, you'll never surpass me," I said calmly. "Give up, Marshal. We're impossible." I turned and walked toward the hull's doors. His hoarse voice followed. "One day, I'll break this bond. Then, no matter your thoughts, you'll be my queen. A master-servant bond lasts until one dies." I didn't take his words seriously, waving as I left. From that day he began sending assassins after me. My death was his doing. Whether my resurrection was tied to him, I didn't know. Either way, I wanted nothing to do with him. As my blood servant, he'd had a shy cruelty as king. It intensified. Our values and views clashed, we had nothing to say. The dream ended. I opened my eyes, staring at the ceiling, realizing I was no longer Claris but Carolina. Recalling my collapse, I tried to sit up, checking if I'd been left on the street. But after who knows how long unconscious, my limbs were leaden, my strength flakes and slipping through my fingers. A low, cold voice spoke in the darkness. "Awake." I rarely memorized voices, but his was unforgettable. "Mr. G? It's me." He approached, his black and gold cloak swaying, his tall figure sharpening in the thick darkness. "Tell me why you carry the scent of an old vampire." "Old vampire scent?" I looked at him confused. "What do you mean? If this body had vampire ties, I'd know." He paused, donned black leather gloves, propped one hand beside me, and lifted my wrist, the one I'd pierced with my nails. "Your blood carries an old vampire's scent. Think carefully. Have you met anyone recently?" I thought hard, still baffled. "Sir, I'm a dancer. I meet dozens, if not hundreds of people daily. You need to tell me who you're looking for, or I can't help." He released my wrist, stood, and after a long pause said, "Black hair, red eyes, red rose tattoo on the collarbone." At red rose tattoo, my lips twitched, recalling an unflattering memory. Once, I was sent to assassinate an old vampire traitor, a cunning, elusive man. After 3 months, I found his address, planning to kill him swiftly, but he vanished before I reached his estate. My mentor berated me for ages. The second time, I disguised myself as his late wife, whose hallmark was a blooming red rose tattoo on her collarbone. The assassination succeeded, but my mentor still scolded me for dishonorable methods, saying I shamed him. The tattoo, made too realistic, wouldn't wash off. Many vampires have tattoos, so I wasn't unique. I once met a female assassin with deep blue lips, light blue brows, and a blue-eyed bat tattoo from her left face to chest, which shocked me. Most old vampires have black hair and red eyes, and red rose tattoos aren't rare. Mr. G's description was too vague for a top hunter. "Could you be more specific?" He paused, removing his gloves, rubbing a ruby ring on his pinky. In the dim light, his eyes gleamed like a predator's before a hunt. The person he sought was prey he'd long awaited. They say human evolution turned prey into hunters. Compared to wolves or leopards, humans are the ultimate hunters, using tools to surpass beasts. My mentor said hunter's spirit equals masculinity. I didn't fully agree, but Mr. G's dominant hunter or undeniably drew me as a woman. After a long pause, he said hesitantly, with an almost innocent expression, "She was very beautiful." His first love, no wonder the shock. I wanted to help, but I hadn't met such a vampire. "Sorry, sir." "It's fine." He changed the subject. "The parasite on your hand is a kraken's tentacle. Krakeness are epic-level deep-sea monsters, but their tentacles are barely bronze-level, removable with exorcism flames. Yours, however, is tricky." "Why?" I asked, stunned. If his tone wasn't so flat, I'd think he was retaliating for not finding his love. "It's evolved, Mr. G said. To remove it completely, we must kill its host." I was speechless. Since my resurrection, vampire hunters were in high demand. I'd heard Mr. G charged 20,000 francs for a low-level wall rat. Asking him to slay an epic monster was less likely than me dying and reviving again. Before I could leap up and say goodbye, he added, "I can save you, but you must agree to one condition." I blinked. "What condition?" "Let me search your memories." My heart lurched. That could expose my past life. I wanted to refuse, but having just revived, I wasn't ready to lose this life. Rolling my eyes, I squeezed out tears, saying pitifully, I agree, but could you search my memories after killing the sea monster? It's not that I don't trust you, but it'd make me feel safer. Fine, he agreed without hesitation. His quick agreement emboldened me. One more thing, I want to become a hunter. Could you lend me 120 francs? He frowned, misunderstanding, and cut me off. The world overrates hunters. If you're serious, take a hunter's gear and join me to hunt the kraken. Its core could make you a bronze hunter instantly. But low-level missions would close to you. Glory and risk go hand in hand. Think carefully. Happiness hit too fast. I lay there dizzy before my lips curled. Really? You're so kind. Don't worry, I won't hold you back. He stared at my face, silent, lost in thought. Chapter 8. The gear manager was a 3-star gold hunter, ranked 15th. 3 stars seemed close to 6, but the gap was vast. Killing an epic monster wasn't as simple as Mr. G made it sound. I bandaged my tentacle-infested hand and followed the map to the association's armory. Even with the map, I got lost. The place was massive, rivaling St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican, with endless echoes on its marble floors. After half a day, I reached the armory. A giant badge snake and knight sword loomed overhead. Hunters in gleaming witch silver armor, wielding witch silver weapons, lined up orderly. I headed to the back, but a boy stared at me, surprised. I looked back, puzzled. He asked, "Beauty, did you pass the hunter exam?" It took me a second to register the compliment. Not yet. Someone upstairs told me to get gear first. You must be a shoo-in. Impressive, he said enviously. I mimicked a shy girl's smile. Nearby, a man with slicked back hair and a nose ring sneered. No idea what women think these days. Hunting's a man's game. Only men can handle monsters. Women just cry and scream. Even if you pass the exam, it doesn't make you a hunter. Monsters don't spare you for a nice figure. His group burst into laughter. A redhead added, "Women should be like my mom, cooking, cleaning, laundry. That's a successful woman." The boy glanced at them and whispered, "Those are bronze hunters, hands stained with monster blood, far crueler than us newbies. Gold and silver hunters have private craftsmen and don't come here, so the armory's their domain. Everyone's used to it. Ignore them, they'll stop once they've had their fun." Bronze hunters? I sized up the nose ring guy. He was bulky but unsteady, with heavy dark circles and erratic breathing, a brute relying on strength. Disappointing for a bronze hunter, I expected more. Spotting a dagger in the boy's belt, I asked, "Can I borrow that?" "Sure, but what for?" "Thanks." I drew the dagger and approached the nose ring man, saying bluntly, "Your words pissed me off." "Want to fight?" He froze for 2 seconds, then roared with laughter. "Sorry, what did you say?" The redhead doubled over. She said she wants to fight you. "Little beauty," the nose ring man winked suggestively, "you're too curvy. I'm afraid fighting might turn into that kind of fighting." Amid their jeers, I lowered my head, twirled the dagger and lunged at his neck. In my old body, he'd be dead. Carolina's ballet-trained body was strong but slow, less than 1/10 of my former speed. Still, it was enough. He stumbled back, shocked, wiping his nose. "You serious, woman?" The redhead swung a fist. "Hit her back, show her. Don't disgrace men, nose ring. Fight back, fight back." Amid the cheers, we traded over a dozen blows. His jaw clenched, sweat beading. He should thank his opponent was just a normal girl's body, or he'd have lost in seconds, a humiliation he'd rather die than face. Clearly untrained, his breathing grew labored like an overworked ox. I darted behind him, braced his shoulder, leapt onto his back, locked my legs around his neck, and raised the dagger to his head. It was a killing move, but I only meant to scare him, to teach him women aren't weak. As I angled to nick his raw cheek, an iron chain whipped out, wrapping my wrist, stopping my strike. The dagger clattered to the ground. Nose ring collapsed, trembling hands on the floor. I yanked off the chain, hopped down, and casually picked up the dagger, returning it to the boy's pouch. The crowd backed away, afraid. The boy stammered, "You're so strong." I waved it off, crouched by nose ring, and patted his shoulder. "Still want that kind of fight, little brother?" He shook his head frantically, sweat flying. No. Still gonna make crude remarks? No. Do women have what it takes to be hunters? They do. He nodded wildly. Satisfied, I stood to rejoin the line when a voice called, "Stop. You, yellow-skinned girl." I turned to see a burly blonde man pick up the chain, staring at me expressionlessly. Public brawling, 10 points deducted. Hunters use a point system for promotion. Passing the exam makes you an iron hunter with 100 starting points. Bronze requires 1,000 points, silver 10,000th, gold hunters must rank in the top 20. The 21st, no matter how strong, stays silver. The bronze badge had 3 gold stars. He was Miles, the armory manager, ranked 15th. Deducted 10 points before becoming a hunter. I teared up, saying he provoked me, saying women can't be hunters. I was too angry and challenged him. I won't do it again, please don't take my points. The crowd watched blankly. Miles, unmoved, pulled out a thick notebook. 10 points for a chance to prove yourself, fair deal. Name? He was impervious. I wiped my tears. Carolina. Sponsor, Mr. G. The crowd gasped again. Miles squinted, sneering. Interesting. Doesn't he swear off women, pining for one vampire? Vampires are such hypocrites. He turned to the armory. Get your gear and leave. I don't want his people in my territory. Thanks to his grudge with Mr. G, I got my gear fast. I planned to grab it and go, but Miles stopped me. Since you've got some talent, a word of advice: stay away from Mr. G. He's a vampire abandoned by his creator, done every dirty job, and became a hunter for profit. A vampire who kills his own kind without mercy. How good can his character be? Watch out, or he'll use you as bait. Even humans kill each other. Judging Mr. G for being a vampire was unfair, but saying so would only deepen Miles' bias. I smiled politely, took my gear, and left. Mr. G housed me in his lavish apartment, big enough for a dozen people. Moving in, I got plenty of suggestive looks, but Mr. G rarely returned. In half a month, I saw him only a few times. His missions were heavy, often private, and he returned reeking of monster blood. One day, as I read the hunter's manual on the sofa, Mr. G staggered in, leaning on the doorframe, panting, before straightening. His grey coat was so blood-soaked it looked black. He bandaged his wounds roughly, went to his desk and locked a drawer, and pulled out a glowing green magic book. He inserted a yellowed page, locked it away, and went upstairs to change, ready to leave again. I cared little for most things, but curiosity burned. Mr. G, are you short on money? He glanced at me. No, why? Then why take so many missions? None of your business. I raised my infested hand. In half a month, the Kraken's tentacle had fused with me. I could read and eat with it, though bathing was unbearable. Accepting it didn't mean I liked it. I'm worried you forgot my life's in your hands, I said earnestly. If you're short on cash, don't hide it. I'm full of ideas to make money. And working day and night hunting monsters. Your lover might worry. Lover? He asked, puzzled. The woman you're looking for, isn't she your lover? He froze, looking flustered. No, he frowned, struggling to explain. She's not my lover. I take missions to earn merits. Whether embarrassed by the lover talk or pressed for time, he headed for the door, paused and said, Don't worry, I haven't forgotten my promise. We leave in 2 days. Watching his tall, straight back, my heart stirred. I flipped the manual to the section on merits. Were merits that important? Important enough for a top hunter like Mr. G to sacrifice his free time, working tirelessly. Yet the so-called Hunter's Encyclopedia had only one brief page on merits. Hunter merits. Rewards from epic missions, used to exchange for weapons, gear, magic books, or lost pages. Lost pages? Recalling Mr. G inserting the yellowed page into the magic book, that must be it. I didn't know their purpose, but men chase power, beauty, or strength. Likely the latter. I thought I'd uncover a big secret, but men are so predictable. Yawning, I closed the book. Chapter 9. 2 days later, I found a note from Mr. G on the dining table, his sharp, elegant handwriting stating we'd leave tomorrow morning and to buy necessities. Beside it, under a glass, was a 1,000 franc note. My hand trembled as I picked it up, understanding why theater girls chased rich men. This was the thrill of unearned wealth. Too exhilarating. Rumors painted Mr. G as cold, ruthless, and bloodthirsty, but after half a month I saw only his innocence, kindness, and vast knowledge. I'd thought him a skilled but simple warrior until, stumped by a new solution science formula, I asked him for help, expecting nothing. He was resting, eyes closed, when I approached. Suddenly his eyes snapped open, golden pupils alert like a beast's, cold and dangerous. His aura overwhelmed me. 2 seconds later, it faded. He sat up, one hand on his forehead, the other on his desk, looking at me. What? My thick skin held. Scared or not, I had to ask. I handed him the textbook. Mr. G, a question. It says solution 98 can't be mixed with 100th. Why? The old textbook called them a perfect pair even in rhymes. The new one doesn't explain. I've puzzled over it and can't figure it out. The formula hasn't changed, he said. Mixing 98 and 100 causes breathing issues, even respiratory failure, with a 10 to 20-year latency. It was only recently discovered. If you studied the old text, it's normal not to know. His fingers tapped the desk. But the old text was banned 5 years ago. Where did you learn it? His tone was casual, but my heart jumped. I lied, my grandmother taught me. That was her era's text. He nodded, saying nothing more. Mr. G didn't pry, so I didn't dwell on it. Days later, I asked more questions. His knowledge was vast: monster guides, music, architecture, natural science. If he weren't so busy, I'd have written 100,000 questions for him. Realizing such a smart, rich, devoted man was taken, I sighed. Good men were never mine. Even in a new body, my luck with men was awful. Better to become learned and rich myself than wait for a savior. Besides Mr. G's genius, another shock was Carolina's face growing to resemble my past self. One morning I checked the mirror and found a small brown mole on my right cheekbone. In my old body, it wasn't odd, but this was Carolina's. Her eyes, once large and droopy, giving an innocent, bullied look, were shifting. The mole appeared, and her eye corners turned upward, aggressive like mine, her lashes curling. Covering the lower face, it was almost my old self. Soon, I'd look like before. Great to have my face back, but past entanglements might return. Thinking of Augustus and my mentor, I bought disguise tools to hide the mole and adjust my eye shape. I'd hide as long as I could, unsure if old friends were searching. One day at a time. The disguise tools cost 80 francs, leaving 920th. I bought a dark fine boots, durable leather gloves, and a large backpack. For the sea I got 2 water flasks. After all that, 810 francs remained. Mr. G gave too much. Marveling at his wealth, I hauled my purchases back. That night Mr. G returned. I gave him the leftover money. He looked puzzled. Didn't buy anything? You gave too much. He paused, rare for him. What did you buy? I listed the items. He shook his head. Wrong purchases. Follow me. At the under-district's black market, he bought deer horn rabbit skin boots with magic gems, turning 810 francs into 10th. Deer horn rabbits with antlered heads had tougher skin than ostrich leather. Holding the boots, I felt conflicted. My mentor only tormented me, never gifted clothes. This was my first costly gift. Reluctantly, I handed them back. Too extravagant. Normal boots are fine. Kraken mucus is highly corrosive, Mr. G said flatly. Want to fight it barefoot? I silently kept the boots. I thought that was the shopping peak, but he bought a cloak far superior in material, cut, and price to mine. Then, seeing my plain gloves, he got magical ones. The 1,000 francs vanished. If another man spent like this, I'd think he liked me, but Mr. G's generosity lacked flirtation. Even my rich mentor didn't spend so freely. Mr. G spent like he didn't care about the future. I wanted to say something but felt I had no right. We weren't even friends. I could only respect his ways. Back at the apartment, Mr. G draped his blood-soaked coat over the sofa and went upstairs. His bandages seeped blood, old wounds unhealed, new ones added. He cared little for money or his body, living too recklessly. Shaking my head, I packed for tomorrow. I mistakenly grabbed his coat, then returned it, smoothing the wrinkles guiltily. A portrait fell out, fluttering to the floor. I didn't want to snoop, but it looked familiar. I picked it up. It was a stunningly beautiful woman, her features so striking they bordered on aggressive. She wore a deep purple gown, hair pinned back, a wide-brimmed hat with flowers, and black mesh veiling her full lips. Seeing a small brown mole on her right cheekbone, my heart leapt to my throat. Her features, her style, this was me. Chapter 10. My blood ran cold, my limbs icy. My first thought, Mr. G was my mentor's man. The evolved tentacle, Kill the Kraken story was a trap set with my mentor. But I forced myself to calm down. That didn't add up. My mentor was possessive and jealous. Mr. G's knowledge and skill rivaled his. My mentor would destroy, not employ such a man. Could Mr. G be Augustus' man? Unlikely. Augustus, a new vampire, distrusted the old vampire-hunter alliance, a web of conflicting interests. A top hunter like Mr. G, an old vampire, would only spark Augustus' suspicion, not loyalty. So whose side was Mr. G on? Frowning, I clutched the portrait, studying her features, then glanced at the second floor. Wait, Miles, said Mr. G was a vampire abandoned by his creator, searching for a black-haired, red-eyed vampire with a red rose tattoo. This portrait showed me in the deep purple gown I died in, and it all pointed to one thing. Mr. G was likely my unintended descendant from my past life, the tortured boy from the circus, Eric. This explained everything: why he became a vampire hunter, why he obsessively searched for me, why he denied the lover rumors. I took a deep breath and sank onto the sofa. I couldn't name the feeling. A kind impulse years ago had changed a person's life, shaping his path. Maybe he sought me to kill me, to punish me for altering his fate. Or maybe to thank me for eternal life and healing powers. But if the latter, why no vampire arrogance? What did he feel toward me, his creator, who vanished? Hatred or something else? My head ached. His disregard for money and health now felt different. Before I saw a brave warrior's fearlessness, now it seemed like apathy, caring for nothing. And I was the cause. The portrait left me restless all night. I sat on the sofa, then forced myself to stand, pouring hot water to smooth its wrinkles. But like my turbulent emotions, it wouldn't flatten. I considered tossing it, hiding it, or returning it and apologizing if caught. I chose to put it back. Should I tell Mr. G I'm Claris, just in a new body? Then he'd stop searching, and I could care for him, atoning for abandoning him. But he'd be dragged into the new old vampire conflict. His brilliance would make him a target for Augustus and my mentor. Or, like me, he'd face both and end up dead in a river. Turning him into a vampire was a last resort. I didn't want to darken his life further. But if I didn't tell him, how could I make amends? I didn't know how other vampires treated their progeny, but knowing Mr. G was mine softened my heart like ice cream. I wanted to protect and care for this once pitiful boy, though that boy was now a cold, handsome man. I dwelled on it, falling asleep at dawn. 2 minutes later, a knock and a cold voice woke me. Time to go. I opened my eyes groggy, then dressed in my prepared gear and cloak, tied my boots, slung on my backpack, and washed my face. Remembering the mole, I returned to apply makeup and adjust my eye shape. Downstairs, Mr. G was arming his witch silver crossbow, a pile of bloody bandages at his feet. He wore a dark grey coat, white rolled sleeve shirt, black pants, and brown boots with sharp spurs glinting coldly. I wanted to ask about his wounds but felt it pointless. He wasn't the child of the devil I once saved. Gold Hunter wasn't a common title, only the top 20 in fame, wealth, and merits qualified, and he was number 1. For such a warrior, asking about wounds felt empty. But I genuinely wanted to care, not just on a whim. How could I make up for the past? My head throbbed. We were headed to the Kraken Islands, plagued by sea monsters yet revering them, with a Kraken temple and festivals praying for good weather. Whether due to its remote location or eerie customs, outlaws risked monster attacks to settle there. The map marked the Kraken Islands in red and blue for superstitious locals living near snow mountains, hunting for survival, raid for outsiders with complex pasts, bringing magic stones, steam devices, and monster goods, thriving on the coast. Without the writhing tentacle, I'd have looked forward to this trip. The Kraken Islands, separated from France by 2 seasons for countries, required lightning-fast pterodactyls. The association had tamed ones black, with bone wings and beaks, capable of crossing hundreds of miles instantly. Their rent was as steep as their speed. Only top 10 hunters used them. In the dark forest housing the pterodactyls, a white-clad man jumped off one. Seeing Mr. G and me, he paused, smiling. Found her. Still looking? Still looking, Mr. G said. Good. The man patted the pterodactyl's neck. With a cry, it spread glossy wings and dove into the forest. I just returned from Dreamcatcher Valley. Locals say eating a dreamcatcher beast lets you see what you seek in dreams. If you can't find her, try your luck there. Mr. G nodded. Thanks. You're welcome. The man smiled, leaving. His clothes bore for diamonds in Orion's pattern, the mark of the association's leader, Owen. They say Owen's skills were mediocre, unable to beat the 20th ranked hunter, but his gold title was for issuing orders. His mind was renowned, serving as the association's head, hunter school principal, and monster guide editor. Even such a figure courted Mr. G. If he got entangled in the vampire conflict, he'd be at its center. For his sake, and my peaceful future, I couldn't reveal myself. Guilt filled my chest. Mr. G whistled for a sleek pterodactyl, its limbs sturdy like a horse's, wings wide and glossy. He grabbed its reins, mounted, and looked down. "Can you ride?" I could, but Carolina wouldn't, so I shook my head. He signaled the pterodactyl to lower, patted its back and said, "Get on." Mimicking a clumsy girl, I clambered up. The pterodactyl shot into the sky. I barely grabbed Mr. G's coat in the saddle, nearly falling. He was sometimes thoughtful, sometimes careless, riding like that with a girl behind him. My reflexes saved me, or I'd be dead. The Kraken Islands, between the Norwegian Sea and Arctic Ocean, were cold and snow-covered. The pterodactyl speed crossed the Norwegian Sea in under 2 hours. Wind filled my cloak, numbing my fingers. Below was an endless blue sea. I'd sailed once before, but the sight still weakened my knees. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes and tried not to imagine what lurked below. As the wind carried ice, the world turned white, signaling the Kraken Islands were near. I saw endless snow mountains, colorful low houses and ships at the port, some reduced to lone white sails. This was Europe's northern edge, birthplace of dark faiths, haven for outlaws, the Kraken Islands. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, give it a like and subscribe for more beautiful tales. Tap the next thumbnail to continue your journey.